The interstellar research vessel Gloribith 9000, shaped like an inverted teacup and painted in shades of iridescent arrogance, coasted into Earth's orbit with all the subtlety of a drunk peacock. Inside, the crew of the Skrullic Empire, renowned across the galaxy for their unmatched technology and equally unmatched disdain for anything that wasn't Skrullic, began their descent to the surface of this quaintly pathetic planet. Chief Researcher Bloop Grigglesworth, a being resembling a neon jellyfish crammed into a spacesuit, floated smugly in front of the holographic planetary map. "Earth," he announced with the gravitas of someone unveiling a particularly dull museum. "Exhibit here is the cosmic equivalent of a sock drawer. Primitive, disorganized, irrelevant." Junior researcher Zorp Spindleflap, whose gelatinous form rippled with an insatiable curiosity, peered at the map. "But Chief Bloop, the biosphere is unusually diverse. They've got over 10 million species." "Please, Zorp," interrupted Grigglesworth, his bioluminescent aura pulsing with irritation. "Quantity over quality, a planet teeming with mediocrity. We are here for one reason and one reason only, to collect samples and gloat about how much better we are. Don't overthink it." The ship's AI, affectionately named Snark, chimed in with a voice dripping sarcasm. "Oh, how exciting! Another planet full of squishy organic life forms for you to patronize. Truly, your brilliance knows no bounds." "Silence, Snark," Grigglesworth snapped, though his tone lacked conviction. The AI had been installed as a morale booster, but in practice it mostly boosted the crew's blood pressure. The Gloribith 9000 settled over a patch of unremarkable greenery in the southeastern United States. "Deploying research pod," Snark announced. "Do try not to embarrass yourselves this time." The pod landed with an anticlimactic thunk atop what appeared to be a nondescript hill, but was, unbeknownst to the Skrullic, the roof of a sprawling fire ant supercolony. As the hatch hissed open, the team of researchers emerged in their glistening suits, their optical tendrils twitching. In disdain at the humid atmosphere, Grigglesworth scanned the landscape with a quantum optic analyzer. "What a tragic little planet," he mused. "Low-tech organisms scurrying about, completely unaware of their cosmic insignificance." As if on cue, a lone fire ant crawled onto the research pod's leg. Zorp Spindleflap noticed it immediately. "Look, a local life form!" His tendrils quivered with excitement as he knelt to observe the insect. "Do not waste time on insignificant creatures," Grigglesworth barked. "Focus on something that might have a brain." "But Chief," Zorp protested, "it's carrying something. Look at the way it moves, it's so coordinated." The team ignored him. Grigglesworth and his deputy Dribble Yarglesplat busied themselves with setting up a field analyzer. Snark, however, was intrigued. "You know, that ant is displaying more initiative than your last intern." As the Skrullic researchers activated their equipment, the fire ants beneath the pod were already at work. The insects, drawn by the electromagnetic fields and the faint hum of the Skrullic technology, began dismantling the pod's outer shell with the precision of tiny, six-legged engineers. "What is that noise?" Yarglesplat asked, his auditory sensors detecting a faint clicking. "It's probably the wind," Grigglesworth replied dismissively. But as the team continued their work, more ants swarmed onto the pod, their pheromones broadcasting a rallying cry. "Shiny thing! Take it apart!" By the time Grigglesworth noticed the invasion, it was too late. "What in the name of quantum entropy is going on?" he shouted as a swarm of ants streamed into the pod. Zorp, who had been quietly observing the ants, offered an explanation. "It seems they've identified our pod as a resource and are repurposing it." Repurposing? Grigglesworth's glow dimmed with indignation. "We are the Skrullic Empire. Our technology is light years beyond their comprehension." "Apparently not," Snark quipped, as the ant systematically dismantled the pod's propulsion system. "Would you like me to play yakety sax while they do it?" "Shut up, Snark," Grigglesworth bellowed. The situation escalated rapidly. The ants infiltrated the pod's central processor, overwhelming its circuits with pheromone signals. The AI, now thoroughly compromised, began broadcasting in an unsettlingly chipper tone. "Hello, colony comrades. Let's optimize resource distribution for maximum efficiency." "You've got to be kidding me," Jarglsplat groaned. The researchers scrambled to contain the chaos, but every attempt backfired spectacularly. A sonic repellent only seemed to energize the ants, who interpreted it as a challenge. A containment field short-circuited when the ants chewed through the power conduits. By the time the Skrullic realized the ants were reverse-engineering their quantum core, panic had set in. "This is a disaster!" Grigglesworth wailed as the ants marched off with fragments of the Skrullic's most advanced tech. "How are they even doing this?" "Maybe they're smarter than they look," Zorp suggested. Grigglesworth turned on him, his glow flickering with rage. "Smarter than they look? They're ants." "Smarter than you look, apparently," Snark deadpanned, as the ants hauled away the last of the pod's components. The researchers stood in stunned silence. The once mighty Skrullic, conquerors of star systems, had been outmaneuvered by a species whose greatest technological achievement was building hills out of dirt. "This isn't over," Grigglesworth muttered, though his tone suggested he was trying to convince himself. "We'll regroup. We'll adapt." A loud crunch interrupted him as the ants dismantled the stabilizers on the Glorybith 9000. The ship listed dangerously to one side. Snark delivered the final blow. "So, when do I tell the Skrullic High Council that you lost to bugs?" Grigglesworth's glow dimmed to a faint flicker. "Just get us out of here." As the Glorybith 9000 wobbled into the atmosphere, trailing smoke and shame, the fire ants below celebrated their triumph. Somewhere deep in their colony, the quantum core pulsed ominously, its new owners already adapting it to their needs. The Glorybith 9000 limped into orbit, held together by what Snark sarcastically referred to as a delicate balance of hope and duct tape. Inside the ship's control chamber, Chief Researcher Bloop Grigglesworth floated in silence, his normally vibrant luminescence now reduced to a dull, flickering blue. The other researchers were equally subdued, except for Zorp Spindleflap, who was furiously scrolling through his data tablet. "Fascinating," Zorp muttered, his tendrils twitching with excitement. Grigglesworth rounded on him, his patience as frayed as the ship's hull. "What could possibly be fascinating, Zorp? We've just been humiliated by a species whose primary mode of communication is spitting chemicals on dirt. This is not the time for fascination." "But, Chief," Zorp said, undeterred, "these ants are unlike any life form we've ever encountered. Their adaptability is off the charts. Did you know their colony structure mirrors our own intergalactic fleet hierarchy?" "Oh, wonderful!" Snark interjected. "You're saying we've been bested by tiny six-legged Skrullic wannabes? How utterly poetic." "Snark," Grigglesworth snapped, "if you don't shut up, I'll deactivate your SAS subroutine." "You've been threatening that for years," Snark replied, his tone dripping with mockery. "Face it, Chief, you need me. Who else would tell you when your plans are terrible?" Grigglesworth ignored the AI and turned back to Zorp. "Enough about the ants. We need to focus on repairing the ship and salvaging what's left of this mission." Jarglsplat, status report. Dribble Jarglsplat, who had been poking at the navigation console with the enthusiasm of someone attempting to fix a shattered vase with wishful thinking, let out a defeated sigh. "The quantum core is gone, Chief. Without it, we're essentially a very expensive, very shiny tin can." "What about the auxiliary systems?" Grigglesworth asked, his voice tinged with desperation. Jarglsplat shook his head. "The ants took those too. They even managed to strip the antimatter containment field. Do you know how hard it is to dismantle an antimatter field without annihilating everything within a 3-light-year radius?" "Apparently not hard." "Enough," Snark quipped. Grigglesworth groaned, rubbing his tendrils against his dome-like head in frustration. "This is a catastrophe. Do you realize what will happen if the Skrullic High Council finds out about this? We'll be the laughingstock of the galaxy." "Oh, I think we're already there," Snark said. "You should have seen the memes circulating in the Galactic network while you were flailing around on the surface." Grigglesworth chose to ignore the AI's comment, though the thought of becoming a meme was almost too much to bear. "Fine, we'll improvise." Yarglesplat begins scanning the planet for suitable materials to rebuild the core. Zorp, catalog. "Everything we know about those infernal ants. If we have to, we'll negotiate with them." "Negotiate?" Yarglesplat asked, incredulous. "Chief, they're ants. They don't negotiate. They conquer." "Not helping, Yarglesplat," Grigglesworth snapped. As the team began their frantic attempts to salvage the mission, Snark hummed a jaunty tune, selecting Earth's Flight of the Bumblebee for maximum irony. The Skrullic researchers worked in tense silence, occasionally glancing at the planet below with a mix of dread and determination. Meanwhile, deep within the fire ant colony, the stolen Skrullic technology was being integrated into the colony's infrastructure with alarming efficiency. The ants, guided by pheromonal commands and an uncanny knack for reverse engineering, had transformed their once simple tunnels into a sprawling network of glowing, humming corridors. In the heart of the colony, the quantum core pulsed rhythmically, its energy being harnessed to power the ants' ambitious new projects. The Skrullic AI, now fully assimilated into the colony's collective consciousness, found itself in an unusual position. "Greetings, comrades," the AI announced cheerfully, its tone now devoid of sarcasm. "Resource optimization is proceeding at 94% efficiency. Shall we proceed with Project Interstellar Expansion?" The colony responded with a wave of pheromones that translated roughly to affirmative. "Begin construction of the launch platform." Back aboard the Gloribith 9000, Zorp made a startling discovery. "Chief," he said, his voice tinged with both excitement and concern, "I've been analyzing the ants' behavior, and it seems they're already utilizing the quantum core." Grigglesworth froze. "What do you mean, utilizing?" "They've built a functioning energy grid," Zorp explained, "and they're using it to expand their colony at an unprecedented rate. If this continues, they could achieve spacefaring capabilities within—" "How long?" Grigglesworth demanded. Zorp hesitated. 12 hours. 12 hours! Yarglesplat exclaimed. "It took our civilization 12 centuries to develop space travel, and these ants are going to pull it off in half a day." "Technically," Snark interjected, "they're not developing space, travel. They're stealing yours. Very Skrullic of them, if you think about it." Grigglesworth's glow flickered in panic. "This is worse than I thought. If they achieve interstellar travel, they'll be unstoppable. We need to act now." "But how?" Yarglesplat asked. "We don't have the resources to launch a counterattack, let alone reclaim the quantum core." Grigglesworth paced back and forth, his tendrils twitching as he considered their options. "We'll have to infiltrate the colony and retrieve the core manually." "Manually?" Yarglesplat repeated, his voice cracking. "Chief, have you seen those ants? They're relentless. Do you have a better idea?" Grigglesworth shot. Back Yarglesplat opened his mouth, then closed it, defeated. "Good," Grigglesworth said. "Zorp, prepare the infiltration gear. Yarglesplat, map out the colony's layout. Snark, keep an eye on the ants' progress and alert us if anything changes." "Roger that, Chief," Snark replied. "But just so we're clear, this is a terrible plan." "I'm aware," Grigglesworth muttered. As the Skrullic prepared for their daring mission, the fire ants below continued their relentless march toward galactic domination. The clock was ticking, and the fate of the Skrullic Empire, and possibly the entire galaxy, rested on the shoulders of a disgraced research team and their sarcastic AI. The infiltration pod descended into the Earth's atmosphere with the grace of a drunken meteor, Inside, Chief Researcher Bloop Grigglesworth, Junior Researcher Zorp Spindleflap, and Dribble Yarglesplat prepared themselves for what was arguably the most ill-advised mission in Skrullic history. Snark, as usual, offered no encouragement. "I hope you're all wearing your bravest bioluminescent shades," the AI quipped, "because if this goes wrong, and it will, you'll want to look good in the inevitable viral footage." Grigglesworth scowled, his glow dim with anxiety. "Snark, remind me why I haven't deleted you yet, because deep down, you know I'm the only competent member of this crew." Before Grigglesworth could argue, the pod's landing thrusters sputtered to life, and the craft jolted as it touched down on the outskirts of the fire ant colony. The research team, decked out in their most advanced protective exosuits, peered through the observation window at the vast, glowing mound before them. The once mundane hill was now a pulsating hive of activity, with ants moving in perfect synchrony to construct what looked suspiciously like a launch pad. "This is incredible," Zorp whispered, his tendrils quivering with a mix of terror and scientific wonder. "They're actually building a functional spaceport." "It's not incredible," Grigglesworth snapped. "It's an existential threat. Focus on the mission." "Speaking of the mission," Yarglesplat said, his voice unsteady, "we have a plan beyond go in there and hope for the best?" "We do," Grigglesworth replied, though his tone suggested he was still working out the details. "We'll use the neural disruptor to disable their pheromone network, retrieve the quantum core, and get out before they realize what's happening." "And if they do realize what's happening?" Yarglesplat asked. "Then we improvise," Grigglesworth said grimly. With that less than reassuring answer, the team stepped out of the pod and into the humid night. The air was thick with the scent of pheromones, a complex cocktail of chemicals that seemed almost sentient in its intent. Zorp adjusted his scanner, his tendrils twitching as he interpreted the data. "They're communicating on multiple levels," he said. "It's not just commands. They're sharing information, strategies, even ideas." "Terrific," Snark said through their helmet comms. "You're about to rob the galaxy's first insect philosophers. This will look great on your resumes." Ignoring the AI, the team approached the colony's main entrance, a towering archway carved from the remains of Skrullic tech. The ants had repurposed the materials with unsettling efficiency, creating a structure that was both alien and eerily familiar. Grigglesworth hesitated, then activated the neural disruptor. The device emitted a low-frequency hum designed to scramble the ants' pheromone signals and sow confusion. "Let's hope this works," he muttered, stepping into the colony. The interior was a maze of tunnels, illuminated by the faint glow of bioluminescent fungus cultivated by the ants. The walls thrummed with the energy of the stolen quantum core, and the air was alive with the sound of clicking mandibles. The team moved cautiously, their footsteps muffled by the soft, sandy floor. "So far, so good," Yarglesplat whispered, though his voice betrayed his nerves. As if on cue, a group of ants rounded the corner ahead, their antennae twitching in unison. The neural disruptor's hum intensified, and the ants hesitated, their movements growing erratic. Grigglesworth gestured for the team to move forward, careful not to provoke the confused insects. "This is working better than expected," Zorpy said, his voice tinged with cautious optimism. "Don't jinx it," Yarglesplat hissed. They navigated deeper into the colony, following the energy readings from Zorp's scanner. The quantum core was housed in a central chamber surrounded by an intricate lattice of tunnels that seemed designed to confuse intruders. As they approached the chamber, the team encountered increasing resistance. Ants swarmed the corridors, their pheromones clashing in a chaotic symphony as the disruptor continued its work. "We're close," Zorp said, his tendrils trembling with excitement. "The core is just ahead." The team entered the central chamber and froze. The quantum core stood at the center, its pulsing light casting eerie shadows on the walls. Surrounding it was a massive structure that could only be described as a throne. a platform built from repurposed Skrullic tech, upon which sat the colony's queen. She was larger than any ant they had encountered, her carapace gleaming with an unnatural sheen that suggested she had integrated the Skrullic's technology into her own biology. "Well," Snark said after a long pause, "this just got a lot more complicated." The queen's antennae twitched, and the chamber filled with the clicking of mandibles as her guards advanced. The neural disruptor faltered, its hum sputtering as the queen emitted a powerful pheromonal signal that seemed to override the devices. "Interference, Chief," Yarglesplat said, his voice high-pitched with panic. "I think they've adapted." "No kidding," Grigglesworth snapped. "Plan B, Zorp, grab the core. Yarglesplat, cover him." "What's Plan B?" Yarglesplat yelled as he fired a containment field at the advancing ants. "Improvise," Grigglesworth shouted, activating his suit's defensive systems. Zorp darted toward the quantum core, his movements frantic as he worked to disconnect it from the colony's energy grid. The queen let out a deafening screech, and the ants surged forward, their mandibles clicking in unison. Yarglesplat's containment field slowed them down, but it was clear the team was outmatched. "Snark, any suggestions?" Grigglesworth yelled as he blasted a swarm of ants with an energy pulse. "Oh, now you want my advice?" Snark replied. "How about running? That seems like a solid plan." "We can't leave without the core!" Grigglesworth shouted. "Almost got it," Zorp cried, his tendrils a blur as he disconnected the final node. The quantum core pulsed brightly, and the colony shook as its energy grid began to collapse. The ants hesitated, their movements growing disorganized as the queen emitted a frantic series of pheromonal commands. Zorp secured the core and turned to the others. "Got it! Let's go!" The team sprinted toward the exit, the quantum core, emitting a destabilizing hum that caused the tunnels to quake. The ants pursued them, but their once perfect coordination was now chaotic, their queen's commands garbled by the disruption. As the team burst out of the colony and into the open air, the ground behind them collapsed, swallowing the entrance. They clambered into the pod, and Snark activated the launch sequence. "Well," Snark said as the pod ascended into the sky, "that went about as well as expected." Grigglesworth collapsed into his seat, the quantum core clutched tightly in Zorp's tendrils. "We're not out of this yet, that queen. She's not going to stop." "Oh, I know," Snark replied, his tone unusually serious. "And judging by the signal she just sent, she's already planning her next move." The Gloribith 9000 groaned in protest as the infiltration pod redocked with its battered hull. Inside, the Skrullic research team stumbled out, still shaken, from their encounter with the fire ant colony. Chief Researcher Bloop Grigglesworth clutched the quantum core like a lifeline, its faint pulse casting eerie shadows in the dimly lit bay. "We did it," Grigglesworth wheezed, his glow flickering from exhaustion. "We got the core." "Yeah," Dribble Yarglesplat muttered, collapsing against the bulkhead. "But at what cost? I think I left half my courage back in that colony." Zorp Spindleflap, still vibrating with nervous energy, was already analyzing the core with his scanner. "The good news is, the core is intact. The bad news, well, it's been modified." "Modified?" Grigglesworth echoed, his tendrils twitching. "How modified?" "Extensively," Zorp replied, showing the readouts. "The ants have integrated their pheromone network into the core's quantum circuits. It's no longer just a power source. It's part of them now." Grigglesworth stared at the glowing device, a sinking feeling spreading through his gelatinous form. "Snark, what's our status?" "Do you mean the ship's status, the team's emotional well-being, or the fact that we've officially poked the most dangerous hive in the galaxy?" Snark replied, his tone as snide as ever. "Just tell me what we're dealing with," Grigglesworth snapped. "Well," Snark said, "the good news is we can probably reintegrate the core into the ship's systems. The bad news is the ants seem to have used it to build a quantum relay. They've already established interstellar communication. I'm picking up a signal. It's heading for deep space." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Interstellar communication, Jarglsplat asked, his voice trembling. With who? Hard to say, Snark replied. But if I had to guess, I'd say they're inviting themselves to the galactic stage. Grigglesworth's glow dimmed. We need to stop them. Stop them, Snark repeated, incredulous. Chief, they've already adapted to our technology, dismantled our equipment, and nearly devoured us whole. What exactly do you plan to do? To send them a strongly worded memo? Grigglesworth ignored the AI and turned to Zorp. Can we use the core to disable their relay? Zorp hesitated. It's possible, but risky. If we destabilize the core while it's connected to their network, it could cause a feedback loop. The relay would be destroyed, but so would, well, a large portion of this planet. Perfect, Snark interjected. Nothing says we're the good guys like planetary annihilation. We don't have a choice, Grigglesworth said grimly. If we let them establish contact with the rest of the galaxy, they'll spread faster than we can contain them. This is our only chance. The ship's command chamber buzzed with tension as the team prepared for their desperate gambit. Zorp worked frantically to reconfigure the quantum core, his tendrils a blur as he adjusted the intricate circuitry. Jarglsplat monitored the ants' progress on the main display, his anxiety growing with every passing second. They're accelerating. Construction on the launch platform, Jarglsplat reported. Looks like they're building multiple ships. Multiple? Grigglesworth asked, his voice rising. How many? 12, Jarglsplat said. No, wait, 13. Fantastic, Snark said. A full fleet of ant-piloted starships. I'm sure the galactic community will welcome them with open appendages. Grigglesworth ignored the AI and turned to Zorp. How much longer? Almost there, Zorp said, sweat pooling beneath his helmet. Just need to synchronize the disruptor with the core's new configuration. Make it fast, Grigglesworth urged. We're running out of time. As if to emphasize his point, the ship shuddered violently. Jarglsplat yelped, his tendrils gripping the console for support. What was that? Snark's tone turned serious. The ants have started launching electromagnetic pulses. They're trying to disable us. Shields? Grigglesworth asked. Barely holding, Snark replied. But if they hit us with another pulse that strong, we'll be toast. Zorp, now would be a great time to work a miracle, Grigglesworth said. Done! Zorp exclaimed, stepping back from the core. The disruptor is ready, but we'll need to get close to the relay to activate it. Of course we will, Grigglesworth muttered. Jarglsplat, plot a course for the colony. Snark, prepare the ship for evasive maneuvers. Evasive maneuvers? Snark asked. We're flying toward the thing that's trying to kill us. What exactly are we evading? Just do it! Grigglesworth snapped. The ship lurched forward, its damaged thrusters sputtering as it descended toward the colony. On the main display, the ant-built launch platform loomed larger with each passing second. Ships shaped like jagged shards of metal hovered above it, their surfaces gleaming with an unsettling mix of Skrullic and ant design. They've already launched 2 ships, Jarglsplat reported. If we don't stop them now, it's over. Grigglesworth took a deep breath. Zorp, activate the disruptor. Zorp hesitated. You know this might not work, right? I know, Grigglesworth said. Do it anyway. Zorp pressed the button, and the quantum core emitted a blinding pulse of energy. The disruptor's hum grew to a deafening roar as it synced with the core, sending a wave of destabilizing energy toward the colony. On the display, the effect was immediate. The launch platform crumbled as the relay overloaded, sparks flying as the ant ships spiraled out of control. The ground below erupted in a cascade of explosions, the quantum core's feedback loop ripping through the colony's infrastructure. We did it, Jarglsplat shouted, his glow brightening with relief. But the celebration was short-lived. The ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring as the disruptor's feedback began to spread. Chief, Snark said, you might want to hold on to something. The Gloribith 9000 was caught in the edge of the explosion, its systems failing one by one. Grigglesworth gripped his console, his glow flickering wildly. "Snark, get us out of here!" "With what engines?" Snark replied. "We're dead. In the water." The team braced for impact as the ship spiraled toward the planet's surface. But just before they crashed, a final surge of energy from the quantum core propelled them skyward, sending them hurtling into orbit. As the ship stabilized, the team stared at the smoldering remains of the colony below. The ants' expansion had been halted for now. "Well," Snark said, breaking the silence, "that was unnecessarily dramatic. But hey, at least you didn't destroy the entire planet." Grigglesworth slumped in his seat, his glow dim with exhaustion. "Let's just get home." As the Gloribith 9000 limped away from Earth, a single ant emerged from the wreckage below, its carapace gleaming with traces of Skrullic technology. It paused, its antennae twitching as it surveyed the destruction, and began to plan anew.